we have discussed the cost of inflation a few different times, and here I want to focus in on a few kind of classical economics terminology used for understanding what some of the costs of inflation. But really, when it boils down, when we talk about the cost of inflation, we are almost always talking about time, we're talking about your resources, and we're talking about redistribution. The effects of inflation on money over time and the amount of resources that you use. So I've kind of put up three kind of simplistic things here. And when we talk about inflation, what are we talking about? Again, just to kind of simplify, inflation is an increase in the price level, in the overall price level here. And so let's say that the prices are increasing and you try to combat inflation by holding more of your money into a savings or an investment account to get a return. And so what are we talking about here? Well, we're saying that inflation is eating away at your money, right? Your money has a lower value. It has a lower purchasing power. And so what are we thinking about as far as why would we hold our money in a savings account or an investment account? Well, we're looking to get some sort of return on our money. This is the type of thing that we would call in economics shoe leather. And these are shoe leather costs here. And it's shoe leather costs if you kind of flip it around. So what's the other thing? So if you're holding your money in a savings account or an investment account, then what do you have to do to get it out? Well, if it's in a savings account or an investment account, right, it's not in your checking account, then you've got to go to the bank to transfer your funds, or you've got to go online to transfer your funds back into an account that you can use. And so you're holding your money in a longer term, trying to get it into the higher yield accounts for a longer period of time, and then you're just taking it out only when you need it because of the higher levels of inflation. This shoe leather cost is one of many costs that have kind of traditionally been discussed in economics, but is probably a little bit less now as a result of technology. Now that it's much easier, right, from your phone, you can transfer money from one account to another. This is less of a cost of inflation, but we still want to discuss it as far as how people might be incentivized. We've got another one here where you try to combat inflation with your business by raising your prices at your business. And this is traditionally what we call menu costs. And in fact, this is one of the kind of traditional ways that we think about inflation in economics, and it gets written about all the time as well. So you probably have come across the term menu cost before. But what is it? It's where businesses have some sort of cost, right? It's the cost of changing prices. It's the cost of changing prices at your business. And the classical easiest way to think about this was, well, if you're going to change your prices, that means that you've got to reprint your menus. Well, this is also probably a little bit of a less of an issue than it was before. Menu costs before were a pretty big issue because it did cost a lot to actually print menus and actually post your prices and actually communicate with your suppliers that your prices are changing. Now in the digital economy, this is changing, right? It is less burdensome to change your prices. In fact, I've worked at businesses, we've been at businesses before, we know that businesses do this all the time, that change their prices on a daily basis when they're doing testing. Online, that is an incredibly easy thing to do, to change your prices based off of different promotions that you might be running from time to time or even hour to hour. And so costs of kind of these menu costs, I think, are diminishing when it comes to inflation. But it's a good thing for us to keep in mind as well, because it is a real cost, particularly for kind of brick and mortar stores that are very customer facing. And then we've got kind of a third thing down here. You try to combat inflation by holding on to investments for shorter time periods. And really here what we're talking about, this is kind of a time cost here. And what I specifically are kind of thinking about is that basically that the inflation would eat away at real profits, because your profits can buy less in a future time period, right? And so here what we're really thinking about is what are your real profits? Or what is your real return on investment? And we know that that's your nominal interest rate, right? That's your nominal return minus the inflation that you have here. And so if we have really high levels of inflation, over time that's going to eat away at your real profits. And so it might encourage you to hold on to your investments for a shorter period of time. In essence, what do we talk about in economics? We're always talking about the kind of the incentives that are there. And so the cost of inflation here might be that it changes your investment strategy, that it changes the way that you are dealing with your money, and that might not be great as well for kind of allocating resources in the economy. So just a few different ways to think about how there might be some kind of social costs to increasing levels of inflation and increasing price levels. Again, it really always comes down to over larger periods of time, inflation is going to eat away more. It's going to eat away your resources, mostly your own time, and kind of how much time are you spending on trying to get around inflation, and kind of the redistribution. And the redistribution is here what we're going to talk about next. We're going to go back to a simplistic example of a loan that you might take out with a bank.